Right along the water's edge, it's continuing to come up. It's actually covered some parking lots and even a stage that we saw yesterday. It's still encroaching. And then notice by the time we get into early March in the 2nd, wow, forecast crest expected at 44.5 feet. Unbelievable situation. Drier air moves in as we get into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But I got to tell you, Alex and Mark, still frightening times. It's kind of reminds me of what I remember emergency management officials saying in South Carolina during a flood that we had there a few years back. He referred to it as being a slow motion disaster. It certainly applies here.
Yeah, you can see the water coming your way. And maybe more importantly, Reynolds, we've been watching those flood forecasts and reminding people that only accounts for the next 2 days of rain. So what happens for Thursday and Friday and Saturday, in this case, not in the forecast yet. So that's something to watch as well.
Absolutely, for sure. And no doubt the pictures have been coming in here. Take a look at some of the flood damage in and around the Chicago area here. Look at those cars in the water there. High water really hitting the southern suburbs pretty hard. There were several roads in Cook County closed because of the flooding, and some schools in Ford Heights are closed today as well, all to help keep people off the roads, which is key. We talk about winter weather driving, stay off the roads, but also when it comes to flood issues, you want to stay off the roads as well. Mark?
Yeah, no need to put yourself and the first responders in danger. There's a lot of roadway covered there in water already, and we are not done. Let's start by looking at the big picture here, the water vapor loop. High pressure basically centered right in here. And so we've got this big flow around the high, picking up that Gulf of Mexico moisture and sending it right into the center of the country. At the same time, cold air at the surface is helping to lift up that moisture, give us some storms, and a dry air punch, all pointed right at the same zone, right? You got 1, 2, 3, all those factors coming together to give us some big rains across the southern plains. Light but persistent rains in Cleveland, in Cincinnati, in Louisville, over the Ohio River, but it's really damaging stuff further south. This is going to steal the headlines today. Not only severe weather, there is a severe thunderstorm warning within that mix, but also big-time storms over the hill country, flood potential, Little Rock, hey, all the paved-over counties around Little Rock, you are under flash flood warnings. We're seeing urban and small stream flooding. We're seeing the chance for flash flooding, especially in the low-lying areas. So far today, a couple of different spots here, over 3 inches of rain. And so that's just in 24 hours, but we know this event has gone longer than 24 hours. And so it's about what we're kind of nickeling and diming our way to, right? And then here we go with the severe weather. Severe thunderstorm warning for Grant and Natchitoches parishes in Louisiana, just north of Alexandria. This is the same general complex of thunderstorms that had a tornado warning earlier. Now some gusty winds, some rotation, something to watch. Certainly extremely heavy rain. All those green boxes are flash flood warnings. And you notice the high reflectivity, the high returns, the bright reds on there on the radar. Not moving. So heavy rain and a big, big flood threat right here west of Alexandria right now. Alex.
Yeah, that's wild. While the nonstop rain, that rolls on for millions across the country. Now you got spots like Indianapolis there in the big screen there for you. You got Pittsburgh, St. Louis, all dealing with the opportunity for some rain through the weekend. Now Pittsburgh, you're looking at a flood advisory for the rest of the week. Then in St. Louis, we'll want to have to brace ourselves for freezing rain. Yeah, tonight, winter weather advisory, that goes into effect. So a lot going on here for us across the Midwest into the interior Northeast. Now, as we look at the flash flood threat here for you, going through tomorrow morning, likely to see flash flooding, basically from Memphis in towards the Shreveport area here, and then surrounding that in the green, that's where flash flooding will be possible. And we've got more of that heading on into Friday morning as well. Maybe not as much a likely zone, but possible from Dallas to St. Louis and over towards Louisville as well. Here's the setup here for us heading into our weekend. There is our storm system hanging out basically in the panhandle of Florida. This warm frontal boundary separating that very warm, moist, juicy air mass to the south and the more cooler conditions to the north. And that's where we're seeing a lot of that rain and that juicy air mass. Talking about from northeast Texas sliding all the way into the Ohio Valley through Sunday now. Sunday late in the day, pretty widespread region here of 3 to 5 inches, and there certainly will be locally higher amounts. You get under a storm like Mark was just mentioning there in Louisiana, where it's dumping rainfall rates getting close to 2 inches per hour. And staying over those spots, the amounts could certainly add up even more to 5 to 8 inches, not out of the question. Now, Little Rock, your forecast does call for rain and thunderstorms basically through Saturday, but there is some light at the end of this wet tunnel, and that's coming for Sunday. So hang in there through Saturday, really unsettled, but Sunday, things should be improving out there for you with some sunshine. Another spot that'll be unsettled, that's St. Louis. Now, it looks like Friday we get a bit of a break. Not much sunshine, but at least a break from the rain. And it looks like Friday night, though, into Saturday, things turn unsettled once again. And farther to the north here for you, more of those heavy downpours to contend with here. Cincinnati right in the middle of a good 3 to 5 inches here for you through Sunday late in the day. All right, let's head back to the Ohio Valley. Check in with Reynolds there in Paducah.
Oh, Alex, you know, it's funny. As meteorologists, we always strive for perfection. We always want to get it right. But this is one of those times I really hope the forecast does not validate, because this is a situation that we do not need to deal with. No one needs to. Millions of people affected by this flood threat. We're going to talk about that coming up. But also, ice could be a huge issue for a lot of folks. We're going to tackle both those issues coming up right after this commercial break. We'll see you on the other side. Scenes like this are becoming all too familiar around the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Meet Covington, Kentucky, where the water rising up is causing all kinds of problems that you see here, getting into sidewalks, streets, basements, covering playgrounds, and still we expect the water to continue its rise, and with that, the troubles are going to follow. And it does appear that we're going to be seeing a situation like this as we make our way over the next several days into the weekend, and even when the sun comes back out and drier air moves in, the waters will continue to rise into early March. Well, we've got a series of storms which are going to continue to march across this area where we happen to be in Paducah, but this is not the only spot. It crosses over parts of the Ohio River back into the Mississippi and even to parts of, gosh, can you believe, into Arkansas, Louisiana, even portions of Texas. So we're talking about an area that will be affected by the heavy rainfall and putting many lives in danger, affecting millions of Americans. Well, I'll tell you, folks, for the very latest on what you can expect in terms of the precipitation and the inevitable rise of the water on many of the streams and the rivers and even many of the lakes, you're going to want to keep it here at the Weather Channel. But, you know, there are a lot of things we're following. Not just that, we're also covering some winter weather, a very tumultuous and unsettled time in terms of what we're dealing with weather-wise. Let's send it back in the studio with Alex. And Alex, right now, you were asking me earlier about the precipitation and the nature of it. Very light right now, but there really has been no let-up. It's still falling, and as you know very well, when the ground's saturated, every bit of the rain that does fall certainly can have a dire consequence.
Yeah, you said it, and expect it to fall for the next few days, which is pretty crazy to think about. Meanwhile, that's not the only issue that we're dealing with out there as well. We're talking about an ice threat. Yeah, freezing rain that is ongoing here for us across our parts of Texas and into the southern plains. Here's what we've got through Friday morning here for us. Essentially, this area here from Texas crossing the Red River into Oklahoma could be looking at damaging ice impacts here for us, while it'll be more on the hazardous zone off towards the north just a bit. And even another area here, Mark's going to tackle that just a bit here before long. But here's the setup here for us as cold air continues to slide in from the north here for you. So cold air at the surface driving southbound. Meanwhile, we've got warm, moist air coming in from the south. That likes to rises up and over top of that cold air. And as precipitation starts going, well, that precipitation comes down and freezes right on contact with the surface, that very, very cold surface. So that's what's going on right now. Quite a bit of an area here dealing with the frozen stuff here west of Dallas. Look at this zone that's in place. You got the purples where it's more of a mix, a little bit of sleet in there. Then you got that pink where we got the freezing rain showing up. And look at all the lightning as well. So we've got a lot of thunder freezing rain in place. Abilene right now reporting 30 degrees and icy conditions there. You head over towards Dallas, a little bit too warm at the moment, 37, so you'll be dealing with the rain. But here is the area where there's actually an ice storm warning that is in place. First one issued by the Dallas-Fort Worth National Weather Service Office in 9 years. So you don't see this kind of thing too often. And we'll continue to deal with this here, Mark, for several more hours. And that's why that is going to be dangerous. Several hours of dealing with icing, and that could lead to some issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have a sneaky storm coming back into the north. That moisture is still going back to the north through Friday. A stripe of 1 to 3, maybe even 3 to 5 inches of snow as you get towards, say, Minneapolis. So we're going to add some light to moderate snowfall to the mix. There will also be a corridor of freezing rain that develops within here. So this is now Thursday morning. The ice in Kansas City again. That'll stretch its way north, fizzle out briefly before getting another shot of Gulf of Mexico moisture so it fills back in. That's why Minneapolis to Des Moines, you got to watch out for this wintry weather. One thing to note as this thing moves away is that we also have a chance of some of that sneaky wintry weather to get into the northeast. I say sneaky because it's been so warm, right? Green Bay icing Thursday night, upper 20s. Look what happens, though, across the northeast corridor where we're just talking about record highs. Thursday, we're going to have this stripe of snow and maybe a mixed bag of precip cutting across New York State and Pennsylvania all the way over to Massachusetts by the end of the day. And this area too, Alex, will have a chance of accumulating snow roughly on that 3 to 5 inch range just south of the New York Thruway. Over to you.
All right, we got some changes for some, going from rather warm conditions to wintry conditions. Find out if you're going to be riding this wild temperature roller coaster next.
Breaking now, we have a tornado warning in effect back where it was last time, another one in Louisiana. This is actually for Grant and Wynn parishes. That's in effect until 11:45 local. We've seen more of these earlier. We're probably going to see more of these as we make our way into the afternoon hours. So folks, in these communities, you need to seek shelter immediately. Get to the lowest floor of your home, away from outside windows. This is going to be rolling its way again across much of the landscape, and I'm telling you, it's a very primed atmosphere right now for severe weather, and we will see more of these across these parishes as we roll forward over the next several hours. So again, Grant and Wynn parishes until 11:45 local. Be careful out there and keep watching the Weather Channel. Now, Mark, I know you've been following this all morning long. It looks like this is just one of many types of severe weather that we're going to be following, not just today, but for the next several days.
Yeah, absolutely, Reynolds. Supported by this surge of warm air that has been coming up into the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, the northeast corridor. This is Atlanta, I believe, looking at one of the highways on the left side of the screen there. And so temperatures today could get into the upper 70s. The record is 75. So if we do get out of this kind of drizzly cloud deck for even a moment, you're going to quickly jump into the mid to upper 70s. There is that chance for rain, also a chance for thunderstorms today. But you're in good company with this record heat that is fueling the big thunderstorm threat and the big rain and flooding threat. All of these dots on the map from yesterday were record high temperatures. Quite a story here across, say, Illinois, Missouri, across Oklahoma. When you go southeast to northwest through these states, totally different seasons, right? Through the late week, though, we still have this blocking high pressure zone. We still have warm air in the east. We still have the conveyor belt of moisture in between. For today, if you're outside of the flood threat, it is going to be a scorcher, 70s and 80s. Record potential high again today. Now, interesting, Alex, notice back in what looks like the cold air, those are record highs that happened overnight and midnight highs, and then the cold front overtook them and temperatures started plummeting, but yet record highs were set already. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. All right, let's get you through the next 7 days, get you on in through the weekend. Now today, more of that wet weather. We've been talking about it, this threat for some of the severe there in Louisiana, and of course some of the icing that we're seeing west of Dallas. By tomorrow, still more icing west of Dallas, although Dallas warms up into the mid-40s, and we'll see another area of snow getting going here right across the Midwest. D.C., Baltimore seeing some showers as we move to Thursday, and even into Friday, that may hang around in parts of the Mid-Atlantic, but you notice it's the Ohio Valley back through the Mid-South and into Texas that will continue to stay soggy as we end the week. Also seeing some unsettled weather in the Northwest, a little wintry there, Western Washington and Oregon. That continues into Saturday. We actually expand our zone of wet weather here in the east. Once again, a soggy way to start off the weekend. Looks pretty good, though, along the southeast coast. It looks like by Sunday, though, that begins to change as the shower activity begins to move towards the coastal zones. With that being the case, we do see things settling down. Little Rock, Memphis, up towards Paducah. Sunday looks to be the day that we see things drying out, so hang in there. Monday for you, the southeast, you're looking at the wet weather, and it looks like by Tuesday, more showers start to get going in East Texas and Louisiana. Mark?
And welcome back to continued coverage of an ongoing potential flood threat for millions of people. I'm Reynolds Wolcott from Paducah, Kentucky, a place with a storied history that has included quite a bit of flooding over the years, and flooding certainly possible here as we make our way through the weekend. But what is conjecture here is now a reality for places like Dallas, Texas. In fact, we've got a rescue that's occurring right now. Let's send it right now back into the studio for Mark and Alex. Guys, very, very captivating what we're seeing there in that part of the world.
Absolutely, Reynolds. We're watching some live pictures that have been coming to us from the Dallas area, KXAS. Want to go into that right now as there is a helicopter above a scene. Now, right now you're seeing people that are working their way towards the river because there is a rescue boat that had engine trouble on the river. A river that normally is more like a trickle in comparison to what it is now. Trying to pull up some of this data, there are estimates that, anywhere from 5 to almost 500 times the normal stream flow You are hoping that this pattern that we've been in finally eases up and we can say goodbye to the day after day rain event.
Yeah, you said it, indeed. And the thing that's really stopping all this from changing here, at least in the near term, this bad boy here, this hulking ridge and high that's situated here off the East Coast, until this thing can break down or get out of the way, the pattern's going to continue to bring in that flow from the south out of the Gulf of Mexico and provide us with quite a bit of moisture.
Right. So right now the flow is basically cutting diagonally through the U.S. What we need is it basically going west to east and into the Atlantic. And so let's look ahead. Let's look at the models and see if that happens anytime soon. This is now Wednesday today, big ridge down here, rolling this forward Thursday, Friday, Saturday, into Sunday, and continuing into next week, into Tuesday. We finally have that pattern, right? West to east across the U.S. So that ridge is gone. Things can finally progress. Things can move on. But we're not there yet, right? And then so as we turn the globe back, this is now next weekend, we may finally not only change the pattern, but switch it to completely back to where it was in, say, early January, with cold in the east, a ridge in the west, and a little bit of a disturbance right off the west coast.
Yeah, so for those who were hating the winter, we could be rolling right back into that sort of pattern here as we get into, again, not this weekend, but the weekend after that. But for now, here's what we've got. That moisture, and it's abundant coming in, driving its way in from the south and helping to fuel some of the wet weather that we're seeing right now.
And we are talking about flooding rains, severe weather. There's a tornado threat today within this zone, right? Again, we can't get rid of this pattern if we're going to still have this flow. This atmospheric river of moisture is still cutting through the country. And so it's going to take until early next week and potentially through next week in order to completely end that. That's why we still have green on the map. Then now the 26th through March 2nd into early March, we still have the chance for higher than average precip right over these same zones. But there's some hints that it's going to be changing, at least in the longer term.
Yes, so we can all certainly hope for that. That change is going to start to take place here in the next couple of weeks for sure. But for now, wet weather is the name of the game.
So, okay, so this pattern is going to change eventually, but it won't be in time for this weekend. This weekend is basically a repeat performance from where we just were last weekend. An area of low pressure coming out of the Rockies, coming out of Colorado, that'll go diagonally in that fast-moving flow to the western side of the Great Lakes. Cold air to the north, warm record heat down to the south, and, you know, a stripe of everything else in between.
Yeah, and we've seen it. It's from the sleet, the freezing rain, and, of course, the wet weather out there as well. This is Friday night here for you coming into Saturday. Look at that rain-snow line here for you. We essentially have it across Wisconsin, another bout with snow in a spot like Minneapolis.
Really is incredible how you can get into these repeating patterns week to week. Forecast map looks almost exactly the same.
Yeah. Well, we tell folks all the time, driving into floodwaters, never a good idea.
This latest storm is creating dangerous situations like this one, putting you at risk. So we're tracking the system with a look at the areas in the battle zone right now and who's next in line.
And welcome back to continued coverage of the flooding that we have across parts of America. Earlier, we were showing you the flooding that was occurring in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and certainly the flooding that's happening in places along the Ohio River. I'm meteorologist Reynolds Wolf, and right now we've got the rain which continues to come down with quite a bit of rapidity. At times, the drops are quite large and it gets to be quite steady. At times, it begins to lighten up a bit, but it's a consistent amount of moisture that's going to spill in this area over the next several days. Give you an idea about this town of Paducah. It's home to some 25,000 people, but in the greater metro area, that expands to about 100,000. And it's hard to believe the history, the rich history that they've had in this town when it comes to the rising waters and the flooding that does happen from time to time. In fact, it's back in January, a January day in 1937 when the day began with partly cloudy skies, and within hours, people in this town were able to look up, see the clouds move in. Well, those seconds later, the rain began. The seconds turned to hours. Hours turned into days. In fact, you had 18 days, or either 18 inches of rain that fell in a span of 16 days. And at that point, you had floodwaters that came through this town some 30 blocks in that direction. That's how expansive it was. For that event, well, the reaction was building a wall, a big barrier, a flood wall that extends right along the banks of the Ohio River, which is just to my right, pointing to the north, and protects it from the rising waters. As I speak right now, with every raindrop that comes down, the water continues to rise. It's an equation that we're going to see that could be troubling over the next several hours and days and through the weekend. Even when the moisture begins to move out, the water is still going to rise. You take a look at the radar and you see the troubling of it. Yeah, the expanse of that rain shield, which continues to move over the area. Ground saturated, runoff is going to cause more flooding as that water tries to feed its way into the mighty Ohio, eventually linking up to the Mississippi and then rumbles down into the Gulf of Mexico. Before all is said and done, gosh, Alex and Mark, we're looking at about 5 to 8 inches of rainfall here. But what's interesting is what is a possibility here has become a reality, as you were showing earlier, outside of Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go again, Reynolds, with the chance for more flooding, more severe weather. There's a tornado risk today, and we have a brand new tornado warning to tell everyone about right now as well.
Yeah, we've been watching this area here in Louisiana, and right now, tornado warning there for Grant, LaSalle, and Wynn parishes here. You've got the cities of Georgetown as well as Toulouse. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. There for you. So again, there's that area. We're going to zoom in a little bit tighter here to that spot. Looks like actually a couple of areas of rotation showing up, but the one to the south is the one in the red that has the tornado warning on it there at the moment. So moving to the northeast, right around 20 to 25 miles per hour. That's the general motion here of the storm. A very slow movement, not only very heavy rain, but again, rotation showing up here for us on the radar. So if you're in these areas, from Georgetown to Urania, the Ola area, those are all locations in line to deal with this storm. And again, rotation is showing up, so take it seriously. You want to get into your safe zone, innermost portion of your home, lowest floor of the home or sturdy building that you're in, and getting away from the windows as well.
This cluster is a beast, right? All through the morning and into the early afternoon now, we have seen scattered torrential rain in and around the Alexandria area, but also repeated severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings coming out on this same cluster of storms. It is basically smack dab in the middle of that tornado watch. That tornado watch area continues until 5 o'clock. And that's not where the threat ends today, Alex. We're looking through Mississippi all the way as far north as Nashville for the potential for more tornadic activity as the day goes on.
Yeah, I mean, look at the sprawling area here that's covered in some kind of precipitation. All the greens, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, that's where we got all that wet weather. Then, of course, you get west of Dallas. You start to get into the frozen stuff. Quite a bit of a mess taking shape there as we zoom in a little bit here. Trying to travel along 20 westbound, I would highly recommend against doing that. It has been the freezing rain for quite some time between Dallas-Fort Worth and Abilene. Just a messy situation there.
That's just an incredible setup. When you have, the thunderstorm, the kind of rainfall rates that can happen in a Texas thunderstorm, right? That's what we've got going on, yet it's freezing at the surface. And so all of that is landing as freezing rain. We could have some big problems out there. And all the flood warnings, of course, not just in Louisiana, but also further north. We have heavy rain that has been a problem from Little Rock to Memphis. Good news is that all the flash flood warnings around Little Rock have been dropped, but there's more heavy rain still to come. One little sliver of flash flooding right along 49 outside of Little Rock. Otherwise, it is about Texarkana. It's about Shreveport. It's about Alexandria, where we now have the flash flood warning right now.
Yeah, and again, you just don't see a whole lot of movement with that whole area, the slug of moisture, either south and eastbound. It's basically rolling over the same areas here for us. And again, there is that opportunity for severe. Anywhere you see color, thunderstorm potential is there. But the red areas, that's where we've got the highest risk for severe, including the risk for tornadoes. Torcon values here for us here, getting into the 3 range. So it's about a 30% chance of a tornado here within that area here. So we're going to keep an eye on these spots throughout the rest of this afternoon as well as evening. Of course, we've got nonstop rain. That has certainly been the story for us, rolling on for millions. You got places like Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, all dealing with showers through the weekend. Now, Pittsburgh, you're looking at a bit of a flood advisory here for you for the rest of the week. St. Louis, you're going to have to brace yourself, not just for rain, but the potential for some freezing rain, bit of a winter weather advisory set to move on in for tonight. So a lot of areas that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on as we move through the rest of the day. Here's where we are really focusing on in terms of the flash flood risk for basically today into tomorrow morning. Likely, so a pretty good bet to deal with flooding here for you. Memphis included, just south and east of Little Rock, sliding into the northern portions of Louisiana. Of course, that's where we're seeing some of that very, very heavy rain at the moment. Moving into tomorrow and Friday morning, well, now we're talking possible flash flooding here as opposed to likely, but still the chances there from Dallas spreading up towards St. Louis, Louisville in there. In between, you got Paducah as well. So a lot of zones, again, ending the week on a very wet note. Here's the weekend setup for us, and a very, very moist time is going to be in play. There's our warm frontal boundary, and south of that and east of the cold front, the warm sector of this system, that's where things are juicy enough to get the wet weather going and going at a pretty good clip. So we're talking about rainfall amounts here through Sunday late in the day. Pretty widespread from northeast Texas into the Ohio River Valley, 3 to 5 inches. But within that, there will certainly be some higher totals, possibly getting into the 5, even up to 8-inch range. Not out of the question. You get under one of those storms like we're seeing right now in Louisiana, dumping the rain and not moving much at all, the totals really can add up. So Little Rock, here's what we're looking at over the next several days. Really wet today, looking for Thursday, more wet and more storms. Friday as well, we don't get much of a break. Into Saturday also. But Sunday, there we go. We'll all be looking forward to Sunday here in and around Little Rock because the sun should come out and should be much, much quieter there. St. Louis for you, an unsettled time for us for the rest of this week. Maybe Friday, a break from the heavy rain, but it looks like more showers heading into Saturday. And of course, up the river, more rain expected here across the Ohio River Valley.
I want to go now to Reynolds Wolf, who's been reporting for us in Paducah, because this is tied to the same setup. This heavy rain that's in the southern plains is moving all the way up through the Ohio River Valley and into the Great Lakes as well. And right in between, Reynolds, the town of Paducah, where you have that giant seawall trying to protect the town from the Ohio River.
Absolutely. You know, Mark, very funny you bring that up because off in the distance you can actually see a little bit of a mural. That mural is actually painted onto the flood wall. Flood wall that was constructed back in 1939 and took quite a while to build. But there's over 3 miles of that, and then combined with also parts of earthen levees, and then a combined earthen and concrete levees, all to hold back the stem of the mighty Ohio River. If you could apply human characteristics and wants and desires to a simple raindrop, what a raindrop wants to do is make its way back to the ocean. It really does. So all this water that's falling wants to get into creeks, tributaries, get into the Ohio River, join up with the Mississippi, and then flow its way into the Gulf of Mexico, and then eventually out into the ocean. All the rain that you see in Dallas, what that wants to do is get to the Trinity, somehow link up and get out to the Gulf of Mexico. But the problem is, to make that journey, it certainly can have major impediments in the lives of people who live along these waterways. There's certainly some terrifying times, no doubt about it. So again, we're going to watch this unfold over the next couple of days, and unfortunately that unfolding means more rainfall, more flooding all the way through the weekend and then into early next week. So troubling times, no doubt, in many places here in the Ohio and certainly in Dallas, back on the Trinity. Okay, I believe we're sending it back to the studio. Had a little bit of an audio issue here, guys. So we're sending it back to, I believe, Alex and Mark.
All right, thanks, Reynolds. Indeed, following things closely, not just the water and the rivers that are rising and that rain, but also the wintry side of things where there's the ice threat and ongoing ice issues, in fact, for us across parts of Texas and eventually getting into Oklahoma as well. This is through Friday morning where the ice potential exists, and we're looking at that shade of pink. Yeah, damaging ice potential here for us. Abilene included, crossing the Red River up to just south of Oklahoma City there. We're keeping a very close eye on you. The pattern here for us here heading through tomorrow continues to bring in that flow out of the north here, driving on into the southern plains, north parts of Texas, that cold air. Now, at the same time, you've got warm and moisture coming in from the south, and that begins to overrun that cold air at the surface. So as the precipitation falls, it eventually falls into that freezing surface as freezing rain. And that's what we've got right now across parts of Texas. There's Dallas right now. You're on the warmer side of things where temperatures are a bit too warm for the frozen stuff, but just west of you, you really are in the thick of things there for you. All those pink shades showing up, that's ice to contend with. So Stephenville, there you're right around 31, dealing with icy conditions. Abilene, you've been dealing with ice right now, getting a bit of a break. Cloudy skies and 29 degrees. Meanwhile, you head up towards Wichita Falls, actually snow being reported there in the mid-20s. But one thing we'll notice here as we head through the afternoon, that pink area here hangs around for a bit. So again, you're talking ice for several hours. It's going to add up and certainly lead to some problems. Well, some folks dealing with 70s today, snow tomorrow. Yeah, indeed. Stick around, find out if you are going to be riding this wild temperature roller coaster. That's next.
Though it happened 81 years ago, I'm sure it was terrifying. I'm sure it's still terrifying for those who may still be living and remember those days. It was in 1937 when the Ohio River overswept its banks, came right down through these streets, and went some 30 blocks inland. Amazing. And that terrible time is what caused them to build this massive structure, this barrier, if you will, to hold back the mighty flow of the Ohio River when times flood. And it has happened quite a bit. Earlier today, I was at the hotel, was actually speaking to an employee there, and she shared a story with me. We walked over to the flood wall, and there's a line halfway through. That was halfway up, top to bottom, anywhere from, say, 13 feet, but at least 6 feet up or so. Said that was the flood mark of 2011. So they deal with that, the threatening waters, every now and again. And this is one of those times where we could see that water rise. In fact, it is expected to rise as we make our way all the way from now till about March 3rd. Water coming up quite a bit to 45.5 feet. Certainly shy of the over 60 feet that they had back in 1937, but still a daunting process nonetheless. Not the only place here in Paducah that could be affected. Many other spots around America. And of course, for the very latest, you're going to want to keep it here at the Weather Channel. Again, I'm meteorologist Ernest Wolf from Paducah, but we've got a great team assembled for you, including Mark and Alex back in the studio. And guys, I know we've been talking about some serious weather, no question about it, but please wish Alex a very happy birthday to me. I know it's another big year for Alex, no doubt, but certainly kind of a dreary day at the same time.
Yeah, a little birthday
weather-wise.
A little birthday shout out as he's looking at all the data coming in right now. He's trying not to blush while on air. Doesn't even know it.